All right, now we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, AFWO family. My name is Drea, and I am an administrator here at Air Force Wingman Outreach. And as always, this is our email, airforcewingmanoutreach@gmail.com is where you can reach out to us. Um, any questions you have, any comments that you have, any feedback for us, we normally read them. They're anonymous. And then if we want to bring them to the page for our 36.6K membership to rally around, then that is what we will do. But reach out to us in that way. Or if you want to go to the top of the page in the Facebook group and go to the membership and see all of our administrators, then you can by all means. But without further ado, okay, so we got a guest on here today. And first of all, I want to point out to the membership the band that I have on today. It says "Don't Give Up" and it says "You Matter." And I want y'all to keep that in mind, AFWO, okay? Second, we got a special guest on here today, okay? We got an individual. He's out here in these Facebook streets. He is definitely infamous, does a lot of leadership stuff, has a new book out, and we are going to have some conversations about various things. I'm very excited to have him on. And his name is Mr. Todd Simmons. So we're going to add him to the stream. How you doing, Todd?
Hey, how you doing, Drea? Hey, I appreciate that. Hey, when you're done, you got a new job as my intro person. How about that?
Hey, you know what? I try to channel the UFC. You know, every time I watch Bruce Buffer or any of them folks like introduce the fighters, man, I'm telling you, I get juiced, and I'm like, you know what? Let me do my guest the same way and make them feel very welcome to this platform. So welcome to AFWO Speaks.
No, I appreciate it, man. And I tell you, man, you're in the admins. Before we even get started, just you'll see I'm totally off script, right? Sure. Having a conversation. And but I want to tell you, man, I'm very proud of what you and the other admins are doing. I'll tell you, for me, being out of the Air Force now and looking back at leaders like you and the other admins is taking this head on, regardless of what you may like or not like. You're not waiting, and you got over 36,000 people that's tuned in. So what that tells me is this is an important subject. This is an important topic that folks out there in the Facebook streets.
Yep, the Facebook streets. Yes, sir.
In the IG streets and everything. No, just the folks out there, they think this is important. You just don't have that many people come to a topic like this if they don't think it doesn't have meaning. So I just want to shout out y'all that y'all are absolutely the leaders that we need, and it just makes me, definitely makes me feel proud to know that I had an opportunity to serve with y'all, and y'all are just getting it right, man. So
appreciate that. I mean, we're definitely trying to do the best we can, and you know what? It shows every day in our group and some of the engagement that we monitor on a regular basis. And I mean, our members are out here just really talking and trying to have these tough conversations. And then, every time a member needs help, it's like, you just see those comments build up to where people are like rallying around each other. So, we always enjoy seeing that. So thank you so much. So let's get into this. Okay. We had your intro for UFC. Now we're gonna talk some stuff. But before we get into that, I want to let the membership know Todd is ready for the hot seat. Okay. He's ready for some questions. If you got it, nothing off limits, bring it on. If you got any comments, I will read it to him and let y'all know what you guys are thinking. But please jump into the Facebook comments and by all means ask questions or comment on any of the conversation that we're having. So Todd, tell the people about yourself that aren't familiar with you. What's your background?
So grew up in a small town. I want to sit here and give the violins to be going off in a second, but grew up in a small town, South Carolina, Hardyville, South Carolina. Sandwiched between Savannah and Hilton, South Carolina. Came in the military when I was 18 years old, just like a lot of folks who joined as a plan. I call it my A through Z plan. So because it was my plan A all the way to Z.
All the way to Z.
All the way to Z. It was a last resort plan. And I'm just so fortunate I met a great recruiter, that allowed me to come in the Air Force, even though the metrics of how the Air Force recruits people said I wasn't good enough to be an airman.
Interesting.
And this recruiter took a chance on me and really became one of the first real huge role models in the Air Force for me. But came in the Air Force as a defender, did 20 years as a defender, left security forces, came to command chief out at Edwards, and finalized my career at 25 years out at Air University, out at Maxwell Air Force Base as the command chief out at Air University. So it was a great run, book in to book in. Now I live out in the DC, the DMV area. Took another chance, just like somebody took a chance on me 25 years ago. I took a chance on myself this time and just went a different route. Became an entrepreneur, opened up a leadership development company and consulting business called Courageous Leadership Alliance, and did that about a month before COVID hit. Great time to start a business, you know.
Yeah.
And, but you know what? Through a lot of hard work and a lot of lessons and a lot of tenacity, we survived it and came out the other side, and we're doing pretty good. And we travel. Just came off of an 8-day trip last night.
Okay.
So 4 states. Just So I'm very fortunate to take all those lessons I've had in life, all those lessons I've had in the military, and be able to capitalize on that and go out and really teach people, from my standpoint of how I see people, what's the foundation of leadership, the foundation of building, companies based on folks who understand the connective tissue of people. And, just to be honest with you, culture is currency. To really teach people that you should invest in your culture, because at the end of the day, that's what people are going to stay, and that's what people are going to respect you for. So.
Interesting. So the CLA, what you said is the Courageous Leadership Alliance?
Yes.
Okay, and what how'd you come with the name? What was the inspiration?
Man, so I told you, hey, I'm ready for the hot seat questions. I'll just be honest with you, right?
Yeah.
So, I think I was about a month from retiring, and I knew this is what I wanted to do. Didn't have, I started an LLC and did all the paperwork. I didn't have a name for my company. And I won't mention the name of the person. I'll let him decide if he wants to get this name.
We know.
Huh?
You're going to decide if that person wants to be known.
Well, that person is very known, but I don't know if they want to be known in this story.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
But we were sitting down. I happened to be TDY up here before I moved up here to DC. And I happened to be at one of our favorite cigar bars. And we were sitting down and talking. And I said, hey, I got to figure out a name to put on this paperwork for my company. And then we sat for about an hour and a half, and it was, Todd Simmons group and all kinds of different things came up, right? And we came up with, Courageous Leadership. And that's what it was. Courageous Leadership. I'm like, oh, I like that. But it sounds too long. www.courageousleadership.com.
Right.
And then it was like, and then we started talking about the vision for my company. And the vision for my company was not only leadership consulting aspect and doing all the different things like that, but I wanted to partner or bring folks along who had a passion and desire for what I had a passion and desire for, and not necessarily be employees of mine, but people who may be in a space don't have the Rolodex that I do, that may not have the outreach that I do, that may not even be ready to launch, today, but I can bring these people together. And the word came out, it was like, you're trying to build an alliance.
Right.
And I was like, Courageous Leadership Alliance. So that's where the name came from, over some scotch and cigars and deep thought. So.
Okay. Well, hey, you know what? They say the golf course in different areas generate, type of business ventures. So very, very awesome for that one. And so would you say like it's been successful thus far? Like, I mean, obviously we're post-COVID, but what is your intent, or what is the goal of this organization?
So, the goal of the organization, any startup companies, you have goals that you want to reach, but, you have to look like 2 to 5 years, maybe I'll get to this point. And I will tell you, some great people I started partnering and working with in the beginning, some great innovative folks, some great opportunities came out in COVID. So, speaking of COVID, COVID came and the company was designed on going out to see people face and face, to do leadership, corporate training, consulting, and COVID kind of wiped all of that out. But I would give a lot of props to, a couple of folks who we all were in the same boat. We took a lot of our experiences. I've been a college professor for 16 years. So a lot of understanding how to write curriculum and education. And we literally just turned everything that we had that we were going to do in person into a virtual environment.
Okay.
And within a month, we were doing 10, 15 virtual engagements. And that's how we survived COVID. Okay. And so that turned into a whole nother line of business venture that we wasn't even really going after. Everybody was home. People still needed to be connected. People still needed to be trained. People still needed to find a purpose in what they were doing and a distraction, to be honest with you, right? To continue to go. So we were successful in that. And up until April of this year, where we started pivoting back into in-person. And, we also do certification training for resilience-based leadership.
Okay.
So we're a training body for a recognized certification. And so it's just been, to be honest with you, it's been a blessing. Did I see myself, I've been retired less than 18 months. And, I knew it was going to be hard work going on your own. I knew it was going to be hard work when you don't have all of these things. Because I tell people in the military, right, as a chief, I can go to my organization of 400 people and I can pick out the best senior NCOs and then have a project be successful, right? Because I pick from the best.
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur. You're typically all of those best people rolled up into one. So
yeah.
You got to put a lot of hats on and try to bring a lot of things to bear and roll your sleeves up and work. So I'm pretty proud of the fact that, it's about honestly, it's about proving something to myself. And just to be real, I was a chief for 7 years. I was a command chief for a few years, and people tend to do things for you, right? You can easily transition into this mindset and believe that everything everybody's doing for you or telling you is just all the truth.
Right.
And I never really got into that feeling myself like that, right? So because I never wanted to handicap myself. I always knew that I was going to get out of the military one day. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I would tell you the biggest transition lesson that I've had is, I'm glad that I've always been willing to do whatever it took to get the mission done. No matter, I never considered anything not chief work.
Okay. You never considered anything not chief work. Now, why do you feel like you got to make that clear?
Because it's not even a chief thing. I get a great opportunity, or it's not a military thing. I get an opportunity to work with, CEOs and COOs now and middle level managers, people who have not had any military affiliation. I think that's just a thing that leaders can have as a handicap and honestly, a handicap in their development, in their leadership development as they move up the ladder. If you get so ingrained into your right now and you get so accustomed into what's in your 360, which you have available, when all of those things aren't available, are you still capable to do the minimum things for yourself? If someone made coffee for me for 25 years and then now no one can make coffee for me, do I now know how to make the coffee how I like it?
Right.
Because those other people know how I like the coffee.
Yes.
I know how I like the taste of the coffee. I don't know how they were making the coffee. So now I have to make it, and now I can't get the taste right because I failed to go do it myself when I was standing there.
I got you.
You can't just get accustomed to being served, is what I'm trying to say.
No, I got you.
Just because I had an exec doesn't mean that my exec had to do everything every day, even if that was my exec's job. If I was standing there, I would do it for myself. If I was sitting there, I would do it for myself. I needed to know how to make my own travel plans. It took me actually 3 months to give my exec authorization to even do my travel. I did my own travel.
Wow. Okay. So you were very independent.
I was very independent because I like what I like. I want to sit where I want to sit. I want to have the layovers. I want to have the layovers.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to do it myself. And then when I felt like they knew what I liked and how I liked it, I could train them how I liked it instead of me just being oblivious how the sausage is made.
Makes sense. You were more hands-on, and then building your support folks up to be able to support you in that.
Absolutely, because guess what? Right now, I just came off an 8-day trip, like I told you. You know who made those travel plans? You know who made all those airport plans? You know who made all those hotel plans?
You did.
Those plans. Yeah, I'm glad. So I'm thankful to all of my past execs, if any of them are watching, that they not only taught me things that were new. When I asked questions, I was never questioning them, that they just knew that I was a person who always wanted to know how to do the things that affected me.
Right on. Shout out to the execs, because again, shout out to the execs, because that job can be exhausting. But you're just trying to provide whatever support for the leadership aspect of it.
Yeah, great people, great
and,
people.
And I meant to say shout out to the defenders too, because you said you were a defender for 20 years.
20 years.
Okay, right on. So shout out to our defenders. I have a lot of our defenders on. So let's talk about this book. So your book is called "Why Not Me," right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what were you trying to bring to that? Like, why did you feel now was the time to write the book, or actually to bring it out?
So, Drea, that's a good question. I remember the first time I wrote a page of this book. I was at Manaus Air Base and I was an E6 technical sergeant.
Okay.
And I remember, at that time, it wasn't even, it wasn't a name. It wasn't even a name of the book. It wasn't anything. It was just about writing something down, like writing something down. Because, earlier in my career, going through some mental health challenges and going through different programs and different things like that, I found that journaling or writing and different things like that, or getting your thoughts out on a piece of paper was always kind of therapeutic, right?
Right.
So I always told myself for a long time, I want to write a book. But that was the most intimidating thing that I've ever even thought of. I would get on a computer and I'll be writing on Microsoft Word and I'll get to like 4 paragraphs and I'll go, I don't have anything. I don't know how to. This is going to be a very short book. Maybe we're going to write a paper. So for me, honestly, it's just, and it wasn't the time, right? So if I look at, being an E6 and everything that happened to the right of being an E6, I mean, it just was a lot of life to live after that.
Right.
Why now? It had nothing to do with me really being retired. I think if I would have stayed in the Air Force, I still would have wrote the book.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that, that I wrote in the book, especially probably in the later chapters 5 through, probably definitely some of the beginning 2 or 3 chapters and some of the later chapters, I talked about 20,000 people 3 years before I retired. It's what I talked about quite often. I talked about being in a vehicle, in a patrol car as a young defender, 19 years old, trying to take my life twice. I talked about that. I talked about, not being able to read when I came into the military. I'm an ASFAB waiver kid.
Really?
So I talked about not reading my first book till I was 20 years old on the flight line at RAF Lakeney. So I talked about the challenges that I've had, in every, step of my life, all the way from 6 years old to the family issues, to feeling abandoned, to not having any self-worth when I came into the Air Force. I talk about all those things. So it was, and I gotta, credit COVID, because I don't think if it was that environment of COVID, I would have buckled down and did it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I knew I was going to do it when I say when I'm retired, I'm going to get it done in the first year or 2 when I retire. But I found myself up here in the DMV area after COVID, and really in about 3 or 4 months, kind of everything shut down. And I had this business that I was trying to, stand up, and I just kind of honestly got a little, just to be honest, real talk, I kind of went through a little depression.
Mm.
And I think it was a combination of retiring from the Air Force and after 25 years, I knew what I wanted to do, but it just was a different, right? I stepped off a stage on December 6th, December 7th, I'm living somewhere else, and it's a difference. And then now the country shuts down. So I just kind of started recording my book like on my phone.
Right.
And it became like self-therapy. And I just had hours and hours and hours and just hours of recording. And it became something, of recalling things in my life that's probably been buried in my back of my head for decades. And it became, the more I recorded, the more I recorded, the more I recorded, the more I listened to the recordings, the more it became evident that, man, how did you make it here? And became so thankful for the space that I was in.
Right.
Thankful to be alive, to be so thankful to be now that I can read, to be so thankful to be educated, to be thankful to be a father, to be thankful to be a husband. I was just thankful to have been in the military. I just became very thankful. And I said, you know what? I want to write this in a way, and I really struggled about how to write this, because I left so many things out of the book. I didn't want it to sound petty. I didn't want it to sound about me. I said, now how can I write this in a way where anyone can pick this book up and see if they see a glimpse of themselves somewhere throughout this story, just a glimpse, it can just be 2 seconds.
Right.
So hopefully they see enough self-reflection of themselves where they go, you know what, I can get through this. Like this ain't, man, you know what? It's tough, but there's an other side of this. This is temporary, and that life will continue to have a couple of roadblocks. But there's an end goal of this for me. And what is that end goal? What is those next 5, 12 moves that I'm going to make? And doing those moves, I'm gonna get a little road rash every now and again. So I wanted to kind of take that, like, hey, it wasn't about, well, if I can do it, then you can do it. I never say that, because we all walk different paths. We all have different roadblocks. We all have different things thrown at us. What I wanted to convey to people is that regardless of what's thrown at you, there's another route you can take.
Right.
But you got to figure, I can't tell you what it is, but there's always another door. There's always another path. There's always something good on the other side, but it's going to be difficult. You're going to have to work hard, but you can do it.
So would you say it's like a memoir / inspirational type of, book?
Yeah, absolutely. I want it. It kind of dovetails on both of those, right? Because, the book said it's a memoir, about defying the arts, but it's also, that's why those words were carefully chosen, because it's not just a biography of, I did all these great things. It's a biography of things that I did well throughout, last, 40 plus years of my life, or things I did not do well the last 40 something years of my life. But it's also some hidden gems in there to go, there's, wherever you start, if I can put it all together, where you start is not where you have to finish. And and I want to really write it for a lot of different audiences. And one thing I'm doing is I'm giving a bunch of books away next fall during the school year to a lot of underserved. I come from underserved community, but schools that are predominantly have all of those statistics,
right,
that people don't pay attention to, right? And not only when I want to just give the books away to those, I want, because a lot of those kids are me. I was a statistic that people threw away. I was already prejudged. Like I always tell people, I was already in prison before I was convicted.
Right.
Because I was already prejudged that was going to be my legacy, that was going to be my future in a lot of different ways, right? I'm a 4th grade, 9th grade, and a temporary high school dropout. I failed the 4th grade, failed the 9th grade, and left school in my senior year. So people already had me pegged for where I was going to go, So, but I want, if a young 16-year-old kid can look at me and go and read my book and go, I'm not even in your situation. I just may not have the resources or people. I don't have the connection, and I don't have the access, and I don't have the network. I want to let them know that they can have all of that. It's going to be hard, but I didn't have those skill sets either. I had to make tough choices, and those tough choices led me to almost taking my life one time when I was 19 years old, because it was overwhelming.
Right.
But I had to continue to move forward because, it was tough, but I knew where I wanted to go, and I didn't know what it was. I just knew I wanted to be somewhere else in my life.
I got you. Okay. So it is you're teetering toward younger folks that were, sort of in similar situations that you were in. But also, obviously, for us adults and older folks, we can probably see ourselves in a lot of those things, depending on what we can.
Absolutely. And for older folks, what I want older folks to take from it is that you don't give up on people, and it's in empathy, right? What I want people, if I could have wrote in black markers on the front of the book, empathy, right? Because my life changed because of empathy. My life changed because people saw me. They listened to me, they were willing to see beyond the exterior, or even the words that have come out of my mouth at 19, 20 years old. There were people who was willing to look past that and give me an opportunity. Even when I failed at the opportunity, they were willing to go, okay, I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to take you under my wing and how to do this. I know you just tried to take your life, but I got you. I know the military is trying to separate you. I got you. I think, What do you want to do, Airman Simmons? I want to be here. Okay, well, I'm gonna help you.
Mm.
Why do you want to be here? You know, so empathy is what I want, folks to take, from weaving through the books. You can see at key points in my life, and not even my life, key points in the military, where my choices were very limited. And someone gave me another avenue to go. Not everyone learns at the same speed, right? I tell people I didn't learn the value of a lot of things. It took me a couple of years. Somebody could have given up on me way in my first enlistment, but there were some folks who didn't. And once I got it, Drea, once I understood the key components of life, number one, how to learn, nobody ever taught me how to learn. When I taught how to be a Black man in America, and how navigating that was going to be difficult, and that sometimes just because I worked hard, that opportunities just wasn't going to be fair to me, and what I had to do to really overcome that obstacle, the feeling that you had to be better, or the feeling that you had to know what your gaps were and you had to fill those gaps. Once I learned all of those things, I was unstoppable. Not unstoppable to get promoted to a rank. I was unstoppable as a human being. But it took me a long time to learn that.
Right.
And if I didn't learn that, a lot, and that's why I say that's the give back, right? Because I can sit here and tell you what that feels like, but I can't take someone who looks like me, who's 16 years old, and I can't just tell them that. I got to invest in it. It has to be actionable. It has to be there. And no matter if they look like me or not, that's how I kind of carried myself throughout my military career. Once they let me graduate from ALS and gave me troops, it was all about action. It was about being actionable to, hey, this is how you do this. This is how you learn. Anybody who knows me know I was relentless if you work for me about going to school. I could even tell you the reason why you needed to go to school. I just needed to know you need to educate yourself. I know you need to free your mind. I know you need to figure things out. I know you need to have the barrier. I know you need to overcome the fears of this class, this math class, this English class. I know you need to overcome. I want to challenge you to overcome everything you fear. Because if you can overcome everything you fear, no one can stop you.
Okay. Well, why not me? Why not me? Okay. No, that is awesome, because I'm telling you, like, that sums it up. And I just want to encourage our folks. Like, I will post the link to the book when we're done here. But moving to our next thing, we got a few questions in the comment section. So, they they said, you know what, Dre, your questions are trash. We need this. So let's go to this first one. Okay. So the first question, they want to know your thoughts on the pushback on the critical race theory and the campaign to discredit D&I education efforts. So what I get from this one is that they just want to know, it sounds like it's more of a broad and societal question about the fact that some of that stuff that we were having conversations about early on is now kind of be given a backseat.
Well, I think we're giving energy to it, because it's the loud voices that we pay attention to, right? That's the voices we pay attention to. And the loud voices can sometimes be dangerous, right? But we have to collectively not be emotional about the loud voices. We have to do the work to make sure what we need to accomplish. If we put all of our energy into responding to the loud voices in the room, if we put all our energy into paying attention to the loud voices, then we're just become we're amplifying them. What do I think? I think I'm from the South. I grew up in a school system that had 99.9% of people who looked like me. I didn't understand. I understood my history because I had a great grandmother who was, I would tell you, she probably, probably one of the most, I would put her at a PhD, and I don't know what grade she finished in school, but I put her at a PhD in the history of Black America. She made us proud of who we are. She told us everything. She had a picture of her father and grandfather. We knew who we were. We knew where we came from. We knew the struggle. We knew with the real history of who we were as a family. So I will tell you that we have to do better work at educating ourselves because the information is free. There's, we have to do a better job at educating ourselves and stop waiting on the bureaucratic system to put something in place that's going to be more than 10 pages in a history book. I'm just being real. That has been, when I was in the 6th or 7th grade, it was 10 pages. I'm sure it's probably only 10 pages today. So until, we're not going to change that by, we have to have parallel efforts, right? Yeah, you have to change the system. But while you're changing the system, you have to have control of your own knowledge. You have to have control of what goes in your own communities. You have to have control of how you are spending the other 14 hours that you have with your family, kids, and everything. School has only got them for a few hours.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you don't establish a heritage, a culture of who you are, how you were here, what contribution you have had to making this country what it is. So that's not a bureaucratic answer I just gave you. I'm basically telling you, I can sit here and tell you a short answer and be emotional and be like, I think it's this, I think it's that, I think it's that. But I'm focusing my energy on making sure that I have parallel efforts. And the parallel efforts is that my company so I own a company that teaches leadership development. Guess what is one suite of courses that we teach? We teach cognitive bias. We teach diversity and inclusion. We offer those things from a different perspective because we're not the DOD. Right. And we can go in as responsible. I have one of the smartest people I've ever met that teaches D&I. And he's phenomenal how he teaches it from an economical standpoint, from every standpoint. And we have taught probably at this point thousands of people in all sectors on D&I. And every time he teaches a class, and I'm not going to shoot a plug, but we having a free, go to our webpage, our Facebook out in the streets. We're having a free, next Monday, that instructor is having a free diversity and inclusion masterclass. We're doing it for free. I'm not charging. We typically charge, right? It filled up 110 seats. It filled up in like a week. If anybody wants to get in, we'll put you in, or we'll do another class. So again, for me, it's like I can sit back and wait for the bureaucracy, or I can take control. And that's what we have to do. So the pushback is, you're always going to have pushback. I don't care if this is the next 100 years from now. You're always going to have people who don't want to see things progress, don't want truth to be truth, and that's just the way the world works. But we have to be emotional about things that we can be emotional about to change. And we can change those. And when I say emotions, let's put that energy into making sure the correct information is being pumped out there. Let's put that energy into making sure that when we have those 2 hours at the family reunion, we can interrupt and have these right, that we are not just keeping this between Black Americans, to be honest with you, that my friends who don't look like me, my friends who do look like me, that may be from another country or another walk of life from another part of the country. I grew up in the South, and it's completely different if you grew up in a different part of the country, right? If so we have to continue to have conversations, be bold about it. If it's in your work center, be bold about, but you cannot have a conversation if you are first not educated on it. So go out there wherever it's at, educate yourself, spread the message. If 1 million of us are talking about it, then we would never have to ask the question about a pushback, because we are now in a conversation. It saddens me that, when people are excited about seeing documentaries about history that should be known every day. It saddens me because the information is there. And it's been systematically suppressed in our schools, absolutely. But we still can get access to it, especially in this IT and technological age. And we need to start taking control of our own information roadmaps. So that's a long answer, but I'm a little emotional about that too. Whoever asked that question, I'm also emotional about that.
Well, look, we said there was no bars on this. So, it's about pushing forward, not pushing back, right? Yeah. Awesome. So we do have another, kind of switching gears, we've got another question. And speaking about resilience. And so they're asking, Do you think that you will start doing seminar or symposium platforms to continue to spread your message? More specifically, partnering with the Resilience Leadership Certificate, a lot of us MRTs are wanting more CEUs or sorts to grow our knowledge base. A summit would be wonderful.
So yes, so I am a partner with the Resilience Leadership Certification Program. We are the Courageous Leadership Alliance is the first company to be a training partner with them. So if you go to our website, courageouslead.com, you'll see our resilience-based leadership certification training on there. You'll see all of our stuff. And you're talking about, so something that I do offer. So I speak quite a bit around, the corporate America and the DoD. So I'm a civilian. I'm not a chief anymore, right? So when I was in active duty, yes, I did kind of use that platform to go places and maybe talk about resiliency when I was supposed to be talking about something else. I can do that then. Now, being a private citizen and a business owner, we do offer resilience courses. So I do have a suite of things that, folks have invited me all the time to. I was just out to 2 bases just here the last couple of days in my 8 days of travel. And I talk about these things. Every place I go, regardless of the subject matter that you would hire me for, if it's emotional intelligence, with psychological safety, all of these things, if it's about building a connective, a cohesive team, whatever subjects that I teach always has a line of resiliency in there. Always. It's always going to come back because everything is everything is tied to that. Building a cohesive team, building people who feel valued, psychological safety, all of that is tied to resiliency. Because making people feel valued is part of resiliency. If I don't come to work and feel valued, that can be a negative aspect on my mental health. If I don't feel like I can speak up in my organization, that could be a negative aspect or exacerbate something in my mental health. So I always have a line of resiliency in there. A summit, the Air Force just did a summit. The Air Force just did a large, I don't want to misname it, but it was half A1, I don't know, it was half that did a large Air Force Resiliency Summit here about 2 or 3 months ago. And I was one of the speakers. So there was a summit. I wasn't involved in the planning or anything. I don't know what the outcomes are, but if you are asking that from an active duty military perspective, I would go ask the questions. I mean, I know they have a lot of material that's floating out there. There's about 300-400 people that represented a large cross section of the Air Force. So it just was a summit. But for me, my goal is to put out things that I don't charge people for. So we have master classes that's coming up. If someone was to email us at courageouslead.com or info@courageouslead.com and ask us to put on something in the resiliency space, I'll do it. I put that pledge out there in public. We'll do it virtually, and it'll be no cost to whoever attends. I put that out, and I notice it's like live and being recorded. I put that on my word. So, this is about giving back to the skill sets that we have. I have a great team of people. I have, so if there's something that any one of you talking about out there, MRTs or anything, want to partner with us on a non-financial basis to put something together that you think that we can reach people and help people, give us a call.
All right, now free 99. We like it. I appreciate it. So speaking of resilience, so I've noticed that you talk about resilience, but you also add into these, like, you say that you have like psychological factors into that. And the questions I was going to ask you is what was missing in resilience? Because, on the military spectrum, we talk about that as a means, like by definition, at least in the training that's been received, it's just the ability to bounce back from situations. Right. And I'm just kind of like, okay, well, what does that mean? What does that contain? But what we're taught, I'm not sure if we're taught everything or trained or taught or whatever about everything it takes to develop ourselves in that way. So can you kind of speak on your opinion about that?
Yeah. So, that's why I try to over explain what I believe resilience is, right? So you're talking about the ability to bounce back from a situation, and that is a big piece of it, right? But really what I focus on It's helping you before the situation even occurs, or before the situation even. So if we're talking about a negative culture, or we're talking about someone who already is facing some anxiety that may lead to some depression, that may lead into, hopefully them not taking their life. How do we build a culture and an organization way to the left when it's just a little anxiety that I can come and say, hey, Drea, I'm just not feeling well. I don't understand what's going on with me. Or we have enough trust with each other that we can talk about this like anything else. And I always talk about, and I've been married a long time, and I'm just like most, a lot of folks. I'm not unscathed from having home issues. I mean, that's just the truth. I'm I'm not going to sugarcoat that.
Right.
But I one day I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? How many people as a chief or as a master surgeon or whatever that I had come in my office, male or female, but they're really upset and they're willing to talk about their marital issues. They're willing to say that I'm just not, I'm having some issues at home. Why don't we peel that back a little bit and say, why don't people come to me when they're having anxiety or they're having some depression issues? Or because all of those are tied into the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. So what I try to focus on is not the bouncing back, because I think we have adequate tools on the bounce back piece. What we don't have tools is people being comfortable way to the left. We're not comfortable talking about mental health. We're not comfortable dealing with someone who is going through publicly mental, because we all are going, not all, a significant amount of people go through something. Right. But where we get uncomfortable is when it becomes public. Are people talking to you about it? Not all of us know how to receive that, right? Not everybody know how to handle that, because we think it's going to be, we take mental health exactly to the worst thing that can happen. As soon as someone tells you that they're not feeling well, we automatically goes to them taking their own life. Mm-hmm. I tell people I have been depressed probably 50% of my career, but those 50% of depression, I never want to take my life. I had things that have probably overwhelmed me, or things that have gotten, collided with other things, family, career, all of these things came together and probably just took me into a state where I just needed to rebalance myself. But we're uncomfortable with those types of things from both sides. And I'm not talking about from a leadership perspective, because that's one aspect. From our cultural human perspective, we also, because we're built, and I say we, I'm just talking about just people who are in DOD. We recruit, we retain and expect a certain thing out of people, right? Which can sometimes be part of the problem of getting help. Because when we believe that that's the thing, if right now, if you crack your tooth because you're laughing so hard, Drea, you're not going to believe that cracked tooth is going to prevent you from having a career enhancing opportunity when you go back to work Monday. You're not gonna.
No, I'm not going to think twice.
If you go out and slip and break your leg after this podcast, you're not going to go, man, this might cost me my promotion. No, you're going to have a cast for 7 months.
Right.
But as soon as we put mental health in front of it, careerism comes in. And I don't necessarily always blame the individual. It's something has codified into our minds that this may take me out of the front of the line. Even though I have been to mental health for depression, I've been to mental health for anxiety. I have anxiety now. But I know plenty of people with anxiety. They won't tell you that in person, and they have made it through their careers fine.
Right.
But sometimes we believe that is a stigma that's going to take us out from having this great career. And I think we talked before it came on, and I said, the one thing that we don't do, and it's for good reasons, because if you go to the chaplain, which I've been chaplain majority of my career, chaplain doesn't keep notes, right? M-Flight doesn't keep notes. And it's for good reasons. So when I retired from the Air Force, my medical records was that thick because I had some medical issues. But I just thought in my mind, when I picked up my medical records that day, I'm like, what if I could print out every mental health, every chaplain, every M-Flat, every B-Hop, every visit I ever had from some sort of mental health professional? How thick would my medical records be? It would be quite thick.
Yep.
And would people judge me on that differently than they are judging me? And people are congratulating me because my medical records is thick. They're like, man, you're going to probably get a good VA rating because your medical records.
Yeah, they do. They do. They do.
So, but no one would, and I thought about it. Would they congratulate me or would they look at me funny? That's the cultural thing that we have to change, because those two records are no different.
No.
These records may have arthritis in it and some skeletal issues and a couple of broken bones. And that's what all the records have. A lot of MRIs and a lot of different things. This record just has a lot of talking to people, and getting right and getting clarity and getting my family back together and getting myself back together and learning how to breathe through anxiety attacks. If I was to look at both of those records, man, I would probably always pick this record over here over all the pain in this record. So why do we take one and just really, really look at one and scrutinize it more than we look at the other one? I think that's just, that's going to come down to, honestly, just normalizing the conversation.
Yeah.
That's it. Like I told you, it's going to come down to, when people go to work, don't be afraid to put mental health on the whiteboard. You put dental on there, you put PHA on there. And I'm not telling you from a position of heroism. It took me a long time to be comfortable with that. Right. My exec knew where I was going.
Yeah.
I mean, I know at least 3 or 4 times as a NAF command chief, I literally Facebook Live that I was walking out of the hospital out of a mental health appointment just to say that I was my picture's on the wall in the building. And that's not me being a brave person, because I went over 2 decades not being brave.
Right.
But until we but I just got fed up with not normalizing the conversation. I got tired of people, and it's not their fault, but I felt ashamed when one of my subordinate NCOs had to come to me and feel so shameful and whisper to me that they have to go to this appointment. I felt bad as a leader. I felt bad that I'm a part of setting conditions where they have to feel the anxiety, almost have an anxiety attack about letting me know that they're going to something to get help for anxiety. I just could not wrap my head around it.
It's wild. But it's there. It's there, Todd, and I mean, I do think that I imagine in your experience that we're in a different place than when we were,
absolutely
years ago. So now it's just getting one step further to where, okay, like, PTSD, now that's a comfort level with specific parts of mental health now versus all of the conditions. So, we still got to people have to educate themselves on a lot of this stuff first, because what we're finding is it has different faces. Depression has different faces. Anxiety has different faces. Like, we don't know what we don't know. So, where is our willingness to educate ourselves and then be, like you said, be empathetic towards people who are dealing with these type of situations?
Well, I would agree with you, Dre, on that. And I don't want anybody to think that I don't believe that we are still in the archaic 1995 that I was in, because, part of me, like I told you, I attempted to take my life in 1995 in a patrol car on the flight line as a defender. And that was a different time, right? That was a time where culturally, you just, I felt like I could not say anything to anybody.
Right.
Culturally, it wasn't as receptive to speak to your leaders back then as you can. So do I think that we are in a completely different space? Absolutely. I think we have moved light years from where we were at just a decade ago.
Right.
But we're a very large system, the Department of Defense.
Of course.
So is it always going to be a little bureaucratic? Probably, because you just cannot have something that big that's not bureaucratic.
Right.
But where we can control the system, and I say we, I'm talking about the human aspect, we better is to teach more of the empathy, teach more of what as leaders, that you have to take a step back and listen and feel and hear people, we're in a business to protect the nation. Absolutely. We're in the business of fighting wars. Absolutely. But that does not mean there's weakness in being a human being with somebody, that there's a weakness in having a real conversation about what's going on in somebody's life, that there's a weakness in holding a standard and also being somebody who can recognize that I can also let the barriers down and have a human conversation. You don't have to hold a standard with a standoffness. You don't. Nobody ever came and said, I used to always, walk around Air University and I would say, I can be a human being to anybody on this base, and I don't have to worry about the next day. Anybody who I just act like a human with come up to me and go, "How you doing, Todd?" No, they know I'm the command chief. My picture is up in 47 buildings around this base.
Yeah.
I don't have to always walk around and be the person that's, that you already know who I am. I mean, I don't have to. It's not a character. I used to look at it as I don't have to put a cape on and say I'm Superman, and then and then go back to being the nerd. I mean, I can be who I am in the uniform, and I can be who I am outside the uniform, and I can be who I am with you today, and I can be who I am with you tomorrow. You all know who I am.
So when did that light come on? Because that's interesting that you say that, and that's kind of what I try to hit on when I do these discussions, the human aspect. Like, when did you say, you know what? They know I'm the, excuse me, they know I'm the chief, but I'm still a person. When did that come into effect?
Well, I think that has always been a part of me, to be honest with you. I don't think you will meet too many people who work for me to say I'm not a tough person to work for. I got a standard, but that's totally separate from a conversation about Todd Simmons.
Okay.
Right? Chief Master on Todd Simmons is going to make sure and part of that excellence is about you, ain't about me. Part of it just because I just want you to experience the opportunity to be whatever it is that you want to be.
Right.
I'm not going to judge you, whatever it is. If you want to get out, I'm the first person to tell you, okay, let's hash a plan.
Yeah.
If you want to go to school, I'm the first person to be like, okay, let's look at a degree plan. If you want to go get a job in this industry, I'm the first person to say, let me figure out who we're going to call.
Right.
But in the military, okay, I want you to be a good airman, NCO, senior NCO officer, whatever. But having those relationships is about being a human. You can't, it's that light. I think part of that light is because people treated me like that. To be honest with you, Dre.
Okay.
Like that, there are people I can name off a whole laundry list of people, but I put a couple of people in my book talking about when nobody believed in me, somebody believed in me. You know what I'm saying? Even when I felt like no one believed in me, somebody was human enough to say, hey, let me help you out with that. What's going on? And be a real person. I've been an airman and had a senior master sergeant be a real person with me, and he saved my life. I was a tech sergeant, had a chief master sergeant become a real person with me. I was a chief master sergeant, can cry to a lieutenant colonel when we had some very horrible things go on while we were in charge, and it just was overwhelming. Right. So I think because I know what that human connection can be, I was willing, it's always comfortable with me being that person too.
Okay. So it's a part of you. It's a part of you.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, but I guess I'll tell you that I don't know. We have a hard time separating the uniform aspect from the person beneath, and so you talk about your transition about after retiring. Did you, and you said you kind of went through a depression and things like that. Were you like, hey, I missed this, or you don't know how you're going to function, or was it more of just you feeling like you really didn't have a space?
It had absolutely nothing to do with retiring from the military. Like when I say retired, it had everything and nothing at the same time. It had everything to do with just doing the same thing for two and a half decades, right? Yeah. And now you got to kind of but it had nothing to do with I was trying to find this thing. And what something I appreciate is what have you called me the entire time that we've been talking?
Todd.
Exactly. How many times have I really mentioned about, so for me, and this is not a knock on anyone, I don't care what rank you are, if you retired, if you were a retired A1C or retired 4-star general, it doesn't matter.
Right.
For me, separating who I was and who I am today and who I hope to be tomorrow is very important to me, Drea.
Right.
It's very important to me. Who I was is a 25-year airman. And I'll always be that part of that will always be with me. But that's who I was. Who I am today is a man who's trying to figure out being an entrepreneur, and who I want to be in the future is somebody different. I want to be, maybe run for office, or I want to do so. To really allow yourself to start over in a different mindset is very important. That's why for me, and what I'm getting at is, some people may see it negative, but I'm very transparent about this. I don't really allow people to really call me chief.
Right.
And that's very controversial, right? And I've had some conversations with folks about that. Right. Now, if you and I work together and you knew me and that's what you wanted to call me because we have had that relationship,
sure, and
that's what you want to do, you don't have to, that's fine. But you and I have never worked together. You never met me. We've never been in the same space. You don't have to call me that. Right. What I don't want to do is create new people calling me chief.
Right. Right.
Because I'm retired.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm probably getting some frowns for saying that on this thing, but that is my right.
Yeah.
And I think there's some therapy things in that. There's therapy in that. There's therapy in rediscovering who you are. There's a lot of therapy in rediscovering that the Air Force gave me so much skills, so much opportunities. Now let me take that and make Todd Simmons a better version of himself. Because Chief Simmons already did it.
Right.
And Chief Simmons now gotta stay here. And can Todd Simmons do it? And Todd Simmons has to prove that he can do this. Because just like I was Airman Basic Todd Simmons, I had to prove that I can go through all of those ranks to get to Chief. Now Chief is over. I have to prove that I can be a successful businessman. I got to prove that I can be a successful human being out here. I can prove that I can be out here on my own. Just like I'm an Airman Basic all over again. I'm an Airman Basic in life, in society. So I try to tell people, for me, the separation is good. It's not that I'm trying to disrespect. Look, the back of my wall here has a lot of military pictures on it. And all of them are purposeful people I've met that have, a connection with. But that's all the military stuff I really got up. but because I'm trying to transition into a new life, I'm not forgetting where I came from. And surrounding those military pictures in the middle is my company's logo. That's who I am now. I am Todd Simmons from Courageous Leadership Alliance. I'm not former Chief Master Sergeant Todd Simmons from Courageous Leadership. That's not who I am. I am Todd Simmons from Courageous Leadership Alliance. And I tell you, man, it's been the most therapeutic thing I've ever done because it makes me feel like an Airman Basic all over again. I'm not trying to recreate something that I don't have anymore. So.
Okay. And so it's a learning process.
Absolutely. And I enjoy the learning process.
Awesome. Well, I'm very enlightened by that. Like I am all about rediscovering ourselves. Okay. Yeah. And even before we get to that point, even while we're in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because we are still human beings underneath and we have emotions and we have feelings and it's okay. It's okay to do that. Like we have standards. We can still meet the standards, but we can also still have our own standards of being human, Absolutely. So.
And why that's important to me, Dres, because I've been that person since I was an E6. So I started teaching college as a tech sergeant. And I found that I love teaching. So I walked two paths in the military for most of my career, 16 years. So when I got out of the Air Force, I already had I was living my purpose and my passion twice, living it outside of that uniform and living it inside the uniform. So you got to hold on to something you got to hold on to some piece of dread while you're in here. And all the listeners, the military is not trying to strip you of any sense of yourself. They want you to become a complete person that can integrate into teams. Absolutely. They want you to integrate into the culture of the military. Absolutely. But they're not trying to take your soul. So whatever those passions that you have, whatever those passions that you develop, or whatever those passions are that you dream of, that is therapeutic. That is resilience. I do all kinds of things. That I make lamps, all kinds of little hobbies. because I like to keep myself fresh. I like to keep my mind moving, and I like to do it in a way that it's not all stovepiped into what I was doing.
Do you take breaks? Do you take time off? Do you relax? Do you chill? You know, even though you just got off an 8-day trip.
So self-care is really important to me. I've not always been the best person who've done that, but now I'm telling you, I'm very deliberate about it. I walk every morning. I exercise. I have a platinum pass to Top Golf. I don't know if I'm supposed to be shooting out Top Golf, but I spend a lot of hours at Top Golf. I spend a lot of time golfing. I got a golf tournament tomorrow morning. So I absolutely am deliberate. And I'm not talking about this old school, like I put it on my calendar. No, I put it in my mind. Because putting it on my calendar means that I'm still struggling with it. I might put it on my calendar just for scheduling sakes, but it's already in my mind what I'm not going to do. Before it ever gets to my calendar, I already know I'm not doing that because I'm going to go do this. So what's important to me now is what makes me happy. You know, it's a balance of happiness and responsibility, right? And my responsibility sometimes is to be happy. My responsibility not sometimes just ain't just to go out to make money. You know, money doesn't always equate to happiness, because if I just want to make money, I can work 30 days a month. But I try to work half a month, and that's not like and when I say work, I try to be very active half a month in work.
Right.
And then in the other half of the month, I try to do some things for myself, including educating myself, developing myself, working with others, giving back. Those are the things that are part of my purpose. So your purpose part of your job needs to be just as important as the other part of your job that's mere mission orientated and making things happen. If you can balance those two things, then you will have a complete resilient life, as much balance as you can have in a life.
You say the word balance, and man, that's tough. I'll tell you, that's tough. We talk about this work-life balance stuff, and is that possible? Is it realistic?
I don't believe in it. And that's just my opinion. That's a Todd Simmons opinion. I don't believe in walking around with a scale in my pocket. I just told, what I just said is I tried, because you know what? Some days, especially for those of you in the military, I'm past out of the military. Some days there are going to be things that are out of your control that you just are not going to win and your family's not going to win. There's going to be times where there's just a deployment, and that's not your choice, right? You deploy and you got to go for 7 months. And some days you're going to be in an opportunity where you can go home every day at 4:30, and that's what the culture of that organization is. And you have to make the choice to walk out the door at 4:30 and not be this person who stays till 6. You're going to be in opportunities where you might have to miss a baseball game or something because there's a huge tsunami hit somewhere, and these are all real stuff. And now you're out, pushing cargo for 2 months, and there's going to be time when there's nothing happening. And you can leave for lunch, and you can go to this. You can go just pop up at the school, or you can go take the time. Or there's going to be a year where the mission is not as heavy, and you can take all 20 days of leave that you want to take. So balance is about having purpose and purposeful times where purposeful times that where you're supposed to be taking more care of yourself, and there's going to be times where that this is out of my control, where this is just what I have to do because this is just out of my control. But sometimes we put artificial things in our way, and then we call it, I'm out of balance. If you don't have to stay at work till 7 o'clock, then why are you at work till 7 o'clock? If you have the opportunity to take leave, then why would you not take leave? Another thing I never understood.
But what about my people? I'm always supposed to be taking care of my people, right?
Yeah. Your people should mirror your behavior.
Okay.
That you want to take care of your people, do something that they can see that looks right. That's how you take care of your people. You don't take care of your people by looking tired, by being irritable, by coming in on the weekends. That's not always taking care of your people. Yes, somebody might win an award because you came in on Saturday. Yes, but guess what you just told them? That's the price of a mission.
Mm.
You just told them to be me, to be me. This is the price of admission. You know how many of your troops look at that and go, I don't want that.
Yep. I don't want no part of that.
Think about how psychologically damaging that can be to the people we lead. When you stay at cell 7, regardless if they go home, you building a culture that's what right looks like. When you don't take leave, and another thing is I'm just a person who always loved my leave, just to be honest with you. So I can't remember, but maybe 1, maybe 2 years, Drea, that I was ever on a use or lose list.
Mm.
And I've never been in danger of losing them days.
Right. You always pick them.
So, but what I will tell you is I've known people I've worked for me or I worked for that had pride in having 40 days of use and lose. Or will come and go, man, I lost 10 days of leave this year. That's not what right looks like.
Right.
As a leader, you shouldn't even, unless there's a war going on and unless the mission is just so devastated with you're a 1% man, and it's just got to be some extremely bad situations going on that you should be on a use or lose list.
But also understand that part of it is that unfortunately, if you were to get sick tomorrow, they'd still have to function without you. So, you know what I'm saying? So how is this any different? And so I address that because there's, been conversations of the work-life balance and taking a knee. And there's been the push and pull of like, okay, why is it hard for leadership to take a knee, or even, our airmen are perfectly fine with that. But when they see us out here working ourselves into the ground, like that is not, motivating. That is not encouraging. It is like, okay, when I get to be a master or a chief or whoever, that's what my life's going to look like. I don't want any part of that.
Absolutely. And it's no different. It's no different in the civilian sector, right? This is not a military issue. I've seen this now in the civilian sector, but I'm just telling you, it's a cultural thing that we have to pay attention to, and that's what we control. That's why every time somebody tell me work-life balance, and I'm like, a lot of it, yes, there's a lot of choices in a work-life balance that we make that we don't have to make. Because in the just the reality of it is there's going to be things that you have to do at times in your career. I'm always honest about it. It's going to be so out of your control, and the timing is not always going to be right.
Right.
I had 2 remotes, and neither one of those remotes were great times in my young, teenage daughter's lives. But I went and we tried to figure it out, but we worked through it, and I happened to be very fortunate that they stayed in Japan, and that was when I went to Korea, and they came over to Korea, and I went over to Japan, and I went and talked to my commander at the time about my family situation that was going on at the time, and he was like, okay, everybody in Korea gets that mid-tour leave, and he works it out. He worked it out with me because Japan was only a hop, skip, and a jump over, that he allowed me to break my leave up over a year to go home to Japan 4 times.
Right.
Instead of taking 30 days at one time.
Right.
So for me as a master sergeant talking to a lieutenant colonel, I wasn't afraid to go, hey, I need this work-life balance, right? When I'm here without my family, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna do what I gotta do to make this mission. But can I have a little bit of leeway, because I need to really make sure my family is good.
Right.
So there are going to be times where you have to make decisions and you have to speak up for yourself. Or sometimes when you speak up for yourself, it's not even going to be possible. It's just going to be sometimes where this end of the scale is going to be here and this end of the scale is going to be here. And sometimes you're going to be in control of that, and sometimes you're not. But when you are in control about it, with it, are you being deliberate? When you come back from a deployment and take your 14 days off, you come back to work and start working 12-hour shifts like you still downrange? Or do you try to take time to reintegrate with yourself first and reintegrate with your family and kind of take yourself slow into it? Do you know how to say no?
I don't think we do. And
I'm not talking about no from a mission standpoint. Do you know how to say no to stuff that doesn't have to do with what's going on right now, because your life may be a little bit out of whack and you may not need to be the POC for the annual awards?
Right.
Are you good being humble enough to say, my health mentally and physically is more important than my place in line right now?
I don't know. I don't know if people can make those decisions.
Well, I know they're tough decisions. I made some of them.
Why are they tough? But why? Why are they tough?
Because we're competitive people, and we believe that even though there's a million ways to get to where you're trying to go, we all believe that route we're trying to take at that moment is the only way. And that this opportunity may be the only door to get there. And it's not necessarily true.
Yeah, it's like we'll never see it again, or there's no other things that you can dive yourself into that you like, you know what I mean, that you want to do and still achieve the same results.
Absolutely. This just may not be the time today, but we get real, to be honest, a lot, because you live on a cycle of 365 days.
Mm-hmm.
And that cycle of 365 days starts over every 365 days.
Yeah.
So sometimes that you get into that cycle of, if I don't, then where am I going to be? And you got, and we have all, and I'm not anybody to say that I didn't make those decisions. I made those decisions sometimes.
Right.
And sometimes I didn't. And sometimes I was told that the decision I made was going to be very detrimental to my career.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that was okay. And sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes I felt a little way about it. But at the end of the day, I ended up where I ended up. And I couldn't have been, it could have very easily turned the other way. But there were some days I had to choose. Some days I had to choose me.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And I'm not telling anybody that that's what they have to do. I'm just saying that's just the truth, right? We all, because some days you're going to have to make those decisions. But I'm just warning you, if you never choose yourself, you're walking down a very dangerous path.
You'll pay for it.
You will pay for it. So you have to choose yourself sometimes.
It's simple yet so difficult at the same time.
It is. It absolutely is.
So do you have any who are your role models or mentors that you have it? And obviously, keep the list short. I'm sure there's a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't want to offend anyone, but no, I have a lot. So I'll tell you, I won't go through a lot of names. I will tell you the greatest turn in my career and in my life when it came to mentorship is the ability to open my mind, right? I sought out people and started talking to people who necessarily didn't have my background.
Okay.
That was and I tried to make when you talk about mentorship, see, there's a difference, right? When you talk about mentorship, you want to get people, you want to put yourself around people, number one, where you see yourself wanting to be. Mm-hmm. Because typically we put mentorship and friendship in the same bucket.
Okay.
And because not all your friends are necessarily your mentors, and not all your mentors are not necessarily your friends.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So for mentorship, I always seek or enjoy the greatest relationships with people. Sometimes they can be interchangeable, with people who challenge me to be better than what I was right at that second. Those are the greatest mentors I've ever had. And I can go on a laundry list. I don't want to go, it'd be too many names, but I would tell you, I would just go in the last 4 years of my life, some of the biggest mentors I've had, and they're mostly a lot of them active duty, to be honest with you. And it would be, I would say the greatest two people I've learned the most from as an active duty chief master sergeant would be General Schaefer, Carl Schaefer, and General Anthony Cotton, and General Mike Rothstein also. And
what makes them special?
Well, for me, challenging me. First and foremost, I was a cop for 20 years. I came straight from being a cop, take the beret off, and I became a command chief. Like literally that switch. Cop one day, command chief at a test wing that I know nothing about. Testing aircraft. And went in there and became a chief that I probably wanted to be in my mind, which I was going to go do all of the happy-go-lucky and And General Schaefer actually started asking me about things that I had no idea that I even needed to learn. He started taking me to meetings, and as a chief, I'm like, why am I at this meeting in my head? And he started asking me about the KC-46 program that Edwards was testing. He started teaching me about the F-35 program, about the F-35 missile shot, the first missile shot from him. He started teaching me about the drag on a C-17. You hear me talking, I'm a cop. Yeah, so I learned so much about strategic thinking. I thought I was a strategic thinker before I met him, but I learned so much about understanding everything that happens around you, not just with the surface knowledge of things that happen around you. And he pushed me and made me a lot better.
Right.
He made me a lot better, and actually took what I thought was, I thought I was a learner. I thought I was up on my game, and he just accelerated that. And it made me think, for the first time in my whole military career, I looked at the Air Force completely different. I didn't look at the Air Force as an AFSC. I didn't look at the Air Force as a deploying organization or a flying unit. I looked at the Air Force as an enterprise.
Okay.
And I think it really broadened my horizon, even for what I do now. And then General Cotton just taught me what true humility as a leader looks like. The way a 3-star general would handle people, and the way he would interact with people, and the way he interacted and gave me 2 of my very favorite words in life is space and grace. And not only did General Cotton give me the space and the grace to be who I was, like literally he allowed me to be exactly who I was as his command chief. He allowed me and my family to be who we were.
And why was that important?
It was important to me at that time because at that time I was serving for different reasons. It was at that time where, I knew that my family, I wasn't going to do anything else in the Air Force that jeopardized that. So I was very upfront about not Todd Simmons as the command chief. I was very upfront with him as the Simmons family.
Okay.
And what the Simmons family values, and what's important to the Simmons family, and talking about those times where balance, like we just talked about, are going to be a little bit here where Simmons is going to put his time at, where Todd Simmons is going to put his time at when he can. When I could leave work, this is where I'm going.
Right. So you were at different stages of it sounded like you seemed to adapt, or like sort of have changes in different, well, I mean, we all go through different phases of your life, but you were saying, we're representing the Simmons family in this point. Then we're going to represent, I'm talking about Todd Simmons in one aspect. Mm-hmm. Like, were you just finding yourself to be adaptable to certain situations where you know what I mean?
I think I was finding in my career, finally, at 22 years, I was finding out who I was more. I think a lot of that happened, honestly. I think a lot of that happened in the desert. Before Edwards, I was in the desert for a year. And I think a lot of that gave me a time to reflect as a chief in the desert. And then I think a lot of it gave me time when I was at Edwards to really have the time to step away from everything I knew for 20 years and to have to transition into something different. And I just think, why I mentioned General Schaefer is because I don't think it was a better transitional period that I could have had with another leader. Because what I thought I knew for 20 years is not exactly what I needed to know. I needed to transition and pivot to a different person. And it just taught me every day. He would come by my office and he would go, "Hey, are you leaving?" And in the first couple of months, that kind of, because I felt like I was still in the mindset, I'm a command chief now, I'm going to sit in this office, but I would always let my exec go home, and I would sit there because things were still moving around in the office. And I necessarily sometimes wasn't even doing anything.
Right.
And then I started questioning, why am I here? Yeah. And then, he had that conversation with me about, why are you here? If you're done, then you're done.
Yep. Leave.
And that's the first time I became comfortable with that. And it wasn't a bait and switch. It was a true leader who valued, who I was. And I just really felt that all you had to do is be who you are. That's it. Just be who you are. And I didn't feel like I had to be anything else with him or General. That's why I say mentor. I would tell you is, is our former chief master sergeant in the Air Force, who's been completely a good mentor / friend. And you know, I will tell you, that's the person that I named my. That's the person I named my company with.
All right, now, okay, that's cool.
So when I said I was in a Scotch bar.
Oh, hey, you know what? Like you said, it's human. It's human factors, right? But I mean,
But that's yeah, absolutely. But that's what I would say is that we have. There's always been a relationship non-chief master sergeant. So I would say, you know, the ability to even be in uniform and talk about business, to talk about what our futures are going to be, to talk about what we believe that we need to do when we retire. That's what I always enjoyed with those relationships. Very rarely it was to be honest with you, a Air Force conversation whenever we would cross paths. And I really appreciated that because the value of connection is very important to me, and genuine connection is beyond important to me. And when you have a genuine connection with people, you know when it has reached a level where you can just talk like human beings. And that's where I've enjoyed, and a lot of my company's success, I would say, has been because I bounced genuine ideas off of him that he's been able to just give me honest feedback.
Awesome. That helps. So we are getting to the conclusion of the interview. And normally what I do is I allow my guests to give our membership some information, some encouragement, which, by the way, I mean, this whole thing has been a message to me. So if nobody else has gotten anything, I've gotten so much stuff from this. So I am very grateful that we got to bring you on today. But what message do you have for our 36.6 thousand members? You know, encouragement, motivation, anything.
No, you know, I'll be quick, Dre. I think I've, you know, circled back on a lot of just, you know, the same theme that I would close out with all of your members is that, you know, don't try, you know, your chapter, your next chapter has not been written. Your next, the ending of your story has not been written. And I will tell you, I mean, you know, just like a question earlier about, you know, should we be focusing on this or focusing on this? I would tell you to focus on developing your purpose, your passion. What makes you wake up in the morning when you look at your family, when you look at yourself in the mirror, when you do self-reflection, what are you feeling? And capitalize on those feelings to turn that into whatever motivation you need to get after finding the true joys of life. And I will tell you, you can do that in uniform, because you can do that. If you can't do it in uniform, you're going to struggle doing it out, for all of you who wear the uniform. So right now, today, if you're wearing a uniform or you're not wearing a uniform, it doesn't matter. You need to find what truly motivates you. And if you're A1C and you want to do 35 years in the military, guess what? You can have a semblance of yourself those whole 32 years that you have left. You can have that. You can have who you are, and you can still have a successful military career. And there will be tough times in your life, regardless if you're in and out of uniform. They're going to be tough times. But what you need to do is develop that circle of folks who truly are there for you, who see you, who feel you, and who listens to you. Develop one of those people. I always call them my 911. And the last words I said at my retirement ceremony is I looked out in the audience and I said, I see a bunch of my 911s in the audience. Those are people who I've known for 25 years, some of them for 5, some of them for 2. But I can point out 12 or 15 people, what I was very gracious and thankful for I had that many, who with no shame, no hesitation, and complete vulnerability pick up the phone and call them at my absolute worst day, and they call them at my absolute best day, and they call them when I'm just 60%. You need to develop that in your life. You need to develop that for yourself, because you will have those days. But in between those days, it's all about developing who you are. Who you are to transition into the second chapter of your life, the third chapter of your life, the fourth chapter of your life, and to write that ending that you wake up in the middle of the night dreaming about, or you walk around all day daydreaming about. Don't make them dreams, make them realities, because you can do it. Any barrier, any obstacle, you can overcome it. And that's all I have, Drea, for the team. You can reach me anytime you want at, Simmons at courageouslead.com. And I appreciate this opportunity, Dre.
Hey, no worries. And I know my piece for this is like, this is exactly what this platform is for, is bringing that human side to our membership, to really understand what this is about. Is mental health is important. We're having a conversation about it, but we really need to we need to really normalize this, as me and Todd were talking about. And so continue the conversations with your folks, continue the conversation with your friends, with your family, like, not saying wear like a badge of honor, but understand that, like, I know myself, I experience anxiety, and I have anxiety and different things like that. And at one point it was shameful, but then at another point it was like, well, that's what makes me me. So why, would it be any different than telling somebody I have a headache, or versus telling somebody, you know what, I'm having a little kind of weird day and I need to go meditate, or I need to do different things. So just be self-aware, be okay in what you are today. We are here for you. Air Force Wingman Outreach, almost forgot, at gmail.com is where you can reach out to us. We thank Todd. We're going to have his book link in there. We're going to have some of his quotes that he put on the post. This is going to be on YouTube. This is going to be on the Facebook Live. We're going to have so many resources in there. If you have questions for Todd, he's going to go back to the comments, please, and answer some of those questions that y'all have. So, but aside from that, we appreciate it, and we are out of here.
Thank you, Dre.
Yep.